Hello, viewers. How are you all? Happy to connect with you again in this in conversation with one more guest today for this Sunday. I have a personality who's been in the industry for more than 30 years. Which industry? It's very, very fascinating to know. His name is Mr. Ramanathan Sridhar. He is from Tamil Nadu, India, and he's been in Africa for more than 30 years. He has been a globe-trotter. He traveled across Europe, across Asia, and across Africa. Most of us have, our own doubts back in India, like what is Africa and how many countries are in Africa? What is the geographical position? What is the political environment there? What are the economic situation over there? There are so many questions we all have. Only limited people, used to go to Africa to do business or even go for jobs. So one such great individual is with us as a guest today, and he's been a globetrotter, and he's been traveling length and breadth of Africa, I would say. He is the vice president, the head of the business of an organization. It's a multinational organization called Asia View Enterprises Limited, based out of Hong Kong. And currently he's placed at West Africa, the place called Ivory Coast. And he's joining directly from Ivory Coast for the show to facilitate, to share his insights about his journey. His humble journey started from back in India in Tamil Nadu as a procurement officer, purchase officer, and gone to an extent of today is the vice president of a multinational organization. So I welcome Dr. Ramanathan Sridhar for this show. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, sir. Most welcome. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Sridhar, as I have briefed you over WhatsApp that, every Sunday I'm hosting this In Conversation series where I'm interviewing several business leaders, professionals, experts like you. And today we are really, it's a proud privilege for us to host you for our program. And we have 4 segments in this show. Segment 1, I'm going to talk something about, I'm going to ask you something about your personal background and your journey from back in India and Tamil Nadu all the way to your, the globe market. In fact, I can't really define yourself as a person who's settled in Africa because you traveled 70 countries, if I'm right. By going through your profile, I was really got fascinated. So a lot of things to learn. So could you please start your experience in terms of your career, or rather education career, and how you settled right now in Africa?
Yeah. Actually, I'm from a very... can say humble and poor background. Actually, I'm proud to say that my father and mother cooked for 100 people in a small mess and feed them, and with that income they groomed us actually. And I was able to complete my graduation in commerce in National College, Trichy, Bharadasan University. And I started my career as a junior purchase officer in a small steel industry, where I got the exposure regarding purchase. And within a short period, I got an offer, Ferguson Associates, basically. And they have given opportunity to travel to Africa, actually to train. Actually, they have, they were a set of people, they choose some like 30 people to go to Africa, and just to prove the survival, first to survive. They don't teach anything to you. There's an opportunity given to me. There is no salary. There's no salary, literally no salary, only stipend given to us. Just so we will talk about salary. That is the condition 30 years before. I'm talking about 1989 when I finished my graduation. So the chairman simply told me, I cannot measure you unless you show your worth. You prove your worth. So first of all, what is that you need to prove? I asked the question back to him. What do you expect me to prove? Survival. Your education is basically a scale, is a measure. Okay, you know this thing, that's all. But nobody can tell what is survival. So we give you a test for 1 year. You take a contract with us for 1 year. We don't expect you to do anything. So you just go there, survive on your own for 1 year. When you are able to survive, then we will make the investments on you. Then we will train you on whichever the field which we feel that you're strong and capable. That you leave it to us. Are you willing to take the challenge? So I took the challenge at the age of 21 and a half. I took the challenge. With 35 people, we left Africa. First, I landed in Nigeria. We landed in Nigeria night, actually. It's around 9:30 in the evening. That late night we landed in Lagos. Our chairman told the PRO that these people should not see the sunshine in Lagos. They have to go to upcountry. So we have not even seen. Lagos is supposed to be one of the beautiful places. It's like Europe, basically. That beautiful place. And if they see, they will never go anywhere. So send them. So the lot was given for 30 people. 30 destinations was given. Actually, we were sent out. Early morning flight, 4:30 flight. I was sent somewhere closest to Sahara. That is the northern part of Nigeria. Where somebody said that somebody will receive you. So they asked also, have you brought any Indian food with you? Yes, I said, I was proudly was new to the field. I proudly tell my chairman that, you see, my mother has sent this. Okay, keep everything in the table. So everybody, whatever we brought Indian foods, we kept it at the table, center of in the conference table. Then the chairman said to us, not even a grain you will carry from here. You will go there, survive with what you have it there. I don't know what you will get it. You will find out what you will eat. You will find out how to cook. You will find out how to live with those people, learn languages. You don't need to know official reports is required. Survive. Just survive.
It's a big adventure in the age of 22.
Yeah. Yes. I was asked to survive, go there. So I took the early morning flight. One guy received me. There is one room. That's all. With one car is there available for me to travel. One pickup kind of a vehicle to travel. So we moved. That's how we were able to, out of 35, only 7 survived.
Oh.
I'm basically a vegetarian, pure vegetarian. So I did survive with the abilities as a vegetarian in the upcountries. Then after completion of 1 year, the PRO came and picked us up from there to Lagos. Then we were sent to Singapore for further training, and all the things has been done for us. Then I was selected as a procurement manager for Nigeria operations. So I started my career from there. 4 years in Nigeria. Then I was elevated to another 2 countries to look after, to Benin and Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast. Then after completing 7 years in the organization, I was chosen as a deputy manager operations based at Singapore. So I was looking after West Africa from the desk. And then I got an opportunity to shift to another company after completing 7 years with this organization, Olam International. Olam is one of the multi-commodity organization where I served a good time with them in Africa, in Ivory Coast, especially Ivory Coast, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, Kenya, all those places I traveled with them. And after that, I joined Asia-View, and Asia-View for the past 15 years, and we were doing good. And we have developed this organization with a very small, with 4 or 5 members. And today the organization has more than 200 members in the organization. In 15 years, there's a growth. We more than 16 countries. We are operational today with our own infrastructures and facilities. So I was promoted as a vice president to this group recently. I'm taking charge of entire West Africa.
That's fantastic, Mr. Sridhar, about your journey. And in fact, I'm going to ask you something more about your organization, because right now you are with Asia-View Enterprises Limited, which is, I think, about $200 million company. And you are handling 16 countries across, I think, West Africa, I guess.
Yep.
Could you share something more about your organization, what exactly you do in general?
In general, see, we have there are many opportunities in Africa. So, but we want to have our own core policies. Yeah, we wanted to have our core policy and the core product actually. So where we have, we find synergies according to that, because every business has a time, because we are in agro-based commodities basically. So which has a season basically. It comes during a season, the harvest period and marketing period, everything is there. So we see that how we can best utilize our synergies. Accordingly, we have chosen some products which doesn't lapse each other, because you will not be able to do 3 products at the same time, because there is investment concern is there. Your capital will get blocked if you go for 2-3 products at the same time. But we are doing currently we are doing 4 products. We are doing cashew nuts, raw cashew nuts from West Africa. We export it to India, Vietnam, and we do coffee. We have offices in Vietnam also, which is a major bigger zone. We have our own factory in Vietnam, and coffee factory in Vietnam. So we source from West Africa as well. We source from Vietnam, and we export it to Europe and Africa, coffee. And our main strength is in cocoa, chocolate raw material. which basically the Ivory Coast. Why I based in Ivory Coast is the main reason is the world 60% of the world crop comes from Ivory Coast, close to 2 million tons. Yeah.
Oh.
Of cocoa. And next country is Ghana. Put together, they contribute almost 75% of the world production.
Okay.
So of cocoa chocolate industry. So they control the chocolates basically all over the world. So this is our main. We do around 35,000 tons of cocoa every year. And we do around 25,000 tons of cashew every year. And we do sesame seeds to Japan, sesame seeds to Turkey and other areas. In India also, we are exporting to India also, white sesame seeds.
Okay. What is the head count of your organization in terms of number of people working?
Today, we are close to expatriates. We're having a back office in Bombay. India, we have, because we see the synergies today with the technology, and you don't need basically a chartered accountant to come all the way to do the accounting here basically. So our back office supports us. Here, the basically simply a simple accountant with a basic minimum requirement. He collects the details and send it to by WhatsApp to or through documentation, do that tally entry, and the rest of the things taken care from back office. So that way, that a team of accountants will be reporting at the Ivory Coast time there. Like every country, we are close to 16, 17 countries operational now. So the accounts team dedicated for the respective team will report at the respective time. And we have virtual office running with the technology we have called WebEx system, where there is a camera attached to every office room, where it is like you're talking from the next room. And it is the high technology in the sense it will focus to the person who is talking. It will not generally go to the office. If I can sitting from my chair, I wanted to call somebody in India, I'll just call the name Govin. So the camera automatically moves to Govin straight away. So that is the way it has been synchronized. Yeah. So we do that work. So our back office in Bombay have around 30-35 people working who will serve all the administration of all the 16 countries, who takes care. And
excellent.
Yeah, and every country has a country head. Every country has a country head and respective departments. Basically, here is operational. All the operations are happening here. So all the operational responsibility for every country is placed. I just simply oversee. Wherever I need to step in, I step in. I manage the show.
Wonderful. Fantastic, really. I mean, you are actually harnessing the technology and leveraging the available infrastructure for your business. That's fantastic. Especially during COVID days, I think this is much more useful to you. Yes, and the entire world is moving towards E-based, infrastructure-based the opportunities. So it's fantastic, Mr. Sridhar. The entire organization, how the organization functions, is something very beneficial for many of the upcoming organization wanted to explore opportunities. I'm sure you're all there to guide people who wanted to, avail your services. There are a lot of people who wanted to avail your services also, back in India or even rest of the world. So I'm sure with your wealth of knowledge, you'll be able to support them. Am I right?
Correct, sir. Sure.
Sir, now we are moving into the segment 2. The segment 2, since you are a globetrotter and travel length and breadth for 3 decades, I'm going to focus more on Africa now, because since you are in West Africa right now. Could you please share, this is for the benefit of students, parents especially, or people who wanted to travel or explore opportunities in Africa. For their perspective, I'm asking this question to you. So could you please share something about Africa? What is Africa? What are the countries in Africa? Yeah,
it's a good question today. So you see, right from colonial period, this is the resource. Africa is nothing. Another name of Africa is called resource. It is everything is here only. You can put 7 India inside, that much of resources here. A resource is basically Africa. So Europe is zero without Africa. The French president himself has agreed to that. That's the reason why they colonized, because Africa has been colonized. Everybody is misunderstand that it's more English. It is not English. Actually, you have Portuguese colonies in Africa. You have French colonies in Africa, which is more than British colonies. So you have more French-speaking, more Portuguese-speaking in this country, in Africa. Very few countries who speaks English in Africa. I mean, literally around 4 or 5. That's all colonized by British. So, and not only the resource, that's amazed wealth of resource. You have what you name it, diamond, to everything. You have bauxite. Guinea Conakry is the world richest, highest deposit of bauxite in the world, aluminium bauxite in the world. And you have everything what is not there. Unfortunately, that it is the greediness of the Europeans, basically, you can say, and the other community basically want to take away the resource as soon as possible from Africa. But thanks to the technology and the education system that is now, people are awake and they have started managing the country better, and they started guarding the resources also good. And future Africa is the future, I would say that, because everywhere, because they start working on the raw material and finished product they make, and it is in short future everybody will make the final product in Africa only, because you have land, you have space. I told you that it's the size of more than 7 India put together. That is the kind of space you have. And future is Africa. I can strongly say, because having traveled all over the world, and I see that Africa has a great potential in the future. And it will be the base. Because, and one more thing is that where you can see tsunamis, tectonic plates, like Africa sitting in one single plate. No earthquake can come in Africa. That's one more reason to be in Africa. Any world calamity happens, everybody will shift to Africa and start settling in Africa.
Fantastic. That's really, I mean, you are the real brand ambassador of Africa, I would say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And can you please tell me, like you said, West Africa alone has about 16 countries.
Yeah, that is all. Because
so what? What is the size of each country, and how do you really portray the geographical scenario of these countries?
Literally, West Africa, basically all the way, it was only 2 countries, Upper Volta and Lower Volta. And due to the colonization, everybody want a piece of cake in that one. Everybody has their own interest. Americans has their own interest. So they created a colony called Liberia, where they put the rubber plant. They bring the slaves all over from there, freed slaves, because they freed slaves will create a lot of problem in Africa. So they wanted one colony in Africa. Those who in America, whoever in America, all the freed slaves. So if they continue stay there, they cannot tolerate them. So they put them in a country. They need a space. So they created a country called Liberia. And that's where all the rubber plantations, because you have this Bridgestone 1 million hectare rubber plantation is there. And that's how they everybody wanted to call. So most of the colonization happens that they split into pieces. Like if you say Nigeria, starting from Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, you have Nigeria, after Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, Togo, Ivory Coast, Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania. You have so many countries split, most of them divided in French. French has more in West Africa. Domination is more in West Africa, except Nigeria and Ghana are the only 2 English colonies and 1 American colony, you can say, which is Guinea, which is Liberia. Apart from that, all are French.
Okay. So the common language is French predominantly.
Predominantly in Africa, you can say French is more predominant. Portuguese is only you have Mozambique, which is Portuguese, Guinea-Bissau, which is Portuguese. That's all. Most of the others are all French, and very few countries speaks English. Apart from South Africa, Lesotho, southern part is basically English, and most of western part, northern part and western part is French, dominated by French.
Okay.
See, today, all the chocolate industry thrives in Europe throughout. 70% of the world chocolates are manufactured in Europe, and the source is coming from Africa. Europe doesn't grow, nothing grows in Europe. So entire Europe, the market is totally, even the US chocolate, the world's biggest chocolate manufacturer, that's Mars basically. They are the one who produces the maximum chocolates for their military, because the military consumes the highest basically for the military rations. Okay, every ration in the military chocolates are the vital, because when they go, the soldier goes to a field, which the immediate energy booster for them when they get tired is the chocolates.
Okay.
And, so that is the reason why chocolates is inevitable. No matter whatever happens, people eat chocolates, because it's a part of the ration and it's part of the chocolate. A child cannot go without chocolate, basically.
Absolutely.
And so that is the reason why, and they don't produce there. Nothing is produced. Unfortunately, nothing is produced there. It's all the source. The moment, actually, it is happening already, and Africa has started processing chocolates here already, which is happening already. But they are not into not even 10% of their production. But very soon the situation will develop, and Africa will manufacture their own chocolates. Yeah.
Okay. So this is more related to commodities and food processing and food products.
Yeah.
How about the technology side? Whether Africa is also developing on the technology aspect, technology infrastructure?
Yes, sir. Very much. Very much, sir. Very much, because it's close to Europe. It is only 4 hours from Europe journey, and 6 hours from USA. West Africa. It's not far from there. It's very easy, much more. It's even, I would say that, because olden days people say that Africa, anybody talk about Africa, they only remember the tribal dance with the leaves on their waist.
Correct.
I'm very sorry to say that. We do have in India also, we still have such kind of places, but it doesn't mean that India is back. But Africa is far more developed. Like Ivory Coast is called a mini Paris. It's like it's a part of miniature of France. You have much technology. That's why I said to have an infrastructure structure like Victoria Island or in Ghana, we can say that India is behind 10 years. I can say that.
Oh, okay.
Of course, sir, we have the technology.
Yeah, I was about to ask you the same question. You answered it ahead of time. Again, I would like to ask you for my satisfaction, viewers' satisfaction. What is the kind of lifestyle in Africa, especially the modern, lifestyle, the modern leading life in modern way?
See, you maybe as a basic Indian, you will not be able to digest because it is 75 to 80% lean towards Western culture and 20% to Orthodox communities, and which you can see only in the up countries, which is basically the interiors in Africa. Cities are all basically fully dominated. You can say 80 to 90% on the Western side. Like French colonies live the way the French live, and all the other countries follow European norms and not definitely not Asian norms or any other place. They follow Europe. So the system of the living style, the culture, and the marriage systems, the value systems are all basically European based. It's as you can imagine. It's a miniature of there. It's a mirror of Europe, and you cannot say never Asia. It's a mirror of Europe.
Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, if you really look at it, when I visited Paris some time ago, the cost of living was so high.
Yeah.
In France. So when you say it's a European kind of lifestyle, then the cost of living also will be equivalent to Europe, or
definitely not, because Europe imports every pin to plane from there. What grows in Europe? You tell me, sir.
Yeah.
Coffee, your tea leaves are coming from India all the way. They take it from there. All the agriculture based raw materials are coming from Africa and India, from Asia. They are just importers, processes and sending back to us, and we are the fools who pay more money for that, actually.
Okay.
So basically, Africa. That's why I say Africa has a good future. Since once they develop the value chain, because they are in one part of the value chain, they are not the full value chain. So once they are able to understand this and started, because there is a good environment is coming with because it was no more because people are tired of colonization, and everybody, thanks to the next generation, which got a good education from good universities in France and Europe and other places, and people are brighter nowadays, and they have started venturing into Africa, and a lot of companies are coming. They're investing in Africa also. And South Africa, everybody is participating. Africa is growing. I can say it is now breathing. Initially, it was suffocating because of it was not because of anything. It was because of the greediness of the same business communities of other countries, where they see they don't have that kind of resource. Now, everybody now, they wanted to put their hand. Now, Africans are waking up. Hey, my dear, you're taking my child away from me. So they know what to do with their children now in the future.
Okay. So this gives me another opportunity to ask you a question like education. So how is education in Africa in general?
Education, sir. First off, I have not answered your cost of living part. Definitely, it is 50%. You can say Europe, it doesn't cost as much as Europe, but it's much cheaper. Slightly costlier than Indian. If you say Asian, it's a little bit costlier. Which is because it is totally interdependent on Europe, basically. So basically, I have a culture, because there is two types. Here, there is no called middle class. You have lower class or upper class. Basically, it's a rich or poor. There is nothing called in between. So everybody know what to choose. The poor class goes for the second-hand used commodities, basically used clothes and used one, basically that they thrive on. Other one is basically imported from France, because it's kind of a brand. All those things are there, and they would like to show off. Basically, those who wanted to. But definitely, yes, it is slightly costlier than Asia, and definitely cheaper than US and Europe.
Okay, that's fantastic. So I was referring to education.
Education, you have good schools. You have basically, as I told you, it is like in Nigeria, for example, you have Indian schools are there. You have CBSE board, Indian education system, which is there, and the teachers are all from India, basically. So there is kind of a fetch, because the population is more than close to around 20 lakh Indians are living in Ivory Coast, in Nigeria, for example. So that is a type of population there, and they have schools and facilities are there. And unfortunately, English colonies are much fewer in West Africa. Like Ghana, they have their own. They follow the London board called O level, basically. You can that is a system they follow, the London syllabus, basically. And basically other countries are all basically follow the French education basically, and from after completing here they go for higher studies. But you do have a good universities in Africa itself. In Ivory Coast, you have every country has their own universities. Senegal has a university. You have medical universities here, everything. Every faculty you have universities here. Africa is developing, and you don't need to worry about Africa. And if you wanted to have your children more safer, of course you have American schools available across West Africa. All American schools, they teach the American curriculum and American system of education. They follow after. You will be given a chance to study in America further when you complete your schooling here. So automatically you have a chance to go and continue your further studies in the US with their scholarship programs basically. So every country has American school also, which is very costlier, comparatively very costlier. It costs you around $20,000 per year.
Oh, okay. I'll keep a few questions related to the country, education, people who are willing to migrate to Africa. All that I'm going to keep it in segment 4. Now I'm moving into the segment 3.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing all the experience of Africa on segment 2. Thank you so much for that.
Welcome.
The segment 3 is going to deal with the business and job situations in Africa. A little bit we can go deeper into job related aspect, because back in India, we have millions of youth, who studied and who are looking for opportunities. And either they look at only America or look at Europe or Australia or Singapore, Malaysia. So they don't even think there is a country called, there is a huge opportunity exists in Africa. So first, let me start with job market situation. Let me first focus on job market scenario. Do you encourage Indian youth to look up to Africa as a destination for their career?
Definitely, actually, see, with my understanding, what I see today, initial situation, like 10-15 years situation completely has changed. Today, working in America or Europe or Africa or in India doesn't matter today, because all the facilities are available in all those countries. Everywhere the facilities are available. So it doesn't, if you close the room with the internet, a guy with the IT field, basically they're sitting in a closed room. Either they work in USA, the question is after the work hours, that matters. So that depends upon the person's individual taste. You want to go for a bar and everything. It's available today even in India. What you look at, the same things is available in each and every country. So it makes no difference today. But the question is a long-standing future. Africa is basically, I would say that anybody is interested in agriculture and commodities, this is the base. And you have gold mines, you have diamond mines, the other things are geological factors. Those who study in those areas, you have a good future. Like there is a study basically, geophysics. Basically, those who are the miners, they will find oils and all those things, because a huge amount of oil is being nominated in the Gulf of Guinea, which is exactly the West Africa. If you see West Africa, there is one beautiful curve there. It's called Gulf of Guinea. Huge deposits has been found already. And a company from US, Bush, this is a Bush company basically. Dick Cheney is one of the members of the company basically, called ConocoPhillips. They have taken drilling rights already for next 20 years. So everybody is investing in Africa because there is huge potential of oil. And of course, in Ivory Coast waters also, they found oil, and Ghana, they found oil, Equatorial Guinea, they found oil, everywhere oil. Oil is coming out in Africa future. And you have minerals, basically. That's also a natural resource. A study related to natural resource have a good future in Africa. Rather than, I won't discourage, but IT, other things, basically, it's not required. It's a supporting function, which today can be handled from other countries. You don't need to have, like you have an IT office, you can install a back office in it. That's what US is doing today. They don't need a back office, and that's why you have back offices in India. So that you can have it in a house, a rented house in India. You can run the entire show sitting from there. You don't need a guy, because today the employers as a part, they don't even need anybody to come unless if there's a technical glitch. They would ask somebody to come and visit 1 month, 2 months trip after you go back to your place. Finish. And I wouldn't encourage those who wanted to do IT field, everything. It makes no sense for them. This is the place for explorers, who are niche finders, who goes, because Africa is everywhere, look and corner full of opportunities. It is like a virgin market, you can say. And opportunities everywhere. A good mind with a searching knowledge, and they wanted to learn knowledge at the same time to search a niche, to find niche. Everywhere there is a niche in Africa. And it is good for those. I would rather say that if somebody has an interest in agriculture, agricultural based commodities, processing. You can see the way, like for example, cashew nuts has been raw nuts. We take it along with the shell, send it all the way back to India, because in India and Vietnam they process it basically. Very few countries in the world process cashew nuts, and you can do that here also. But finding a way how to do it, if somebody can bridge the gap, there is always a niche everywhere. And those who are interested in food processing, basically, because all the raw materials are from here. For example, mangoes in India, if you don't, you don't even leave a mango in a tree normally. Here, mangoes are abundance. In abundance, you can see it is full of mangoes trees. It falls down. People doesn't take it, doesn't eat much. It goes waste most of the time. And very few companies who comes all the way. And companies like Kisan, they dry the mangoes. And some people have started exporting it to France. Very good varieties available here. So there are opportunities. There are raw materials available. How put into best use, you can say. Every single raw material is available, because at the end of the day, it was one single plate. It got disbanded. India, Madagascar is all attached to Africa. It was attached to Africa before. And first, imagine, I wouldn't say more than the first human being came from Africa only, from Tanzania, in one of the village. They were able to find the DNA all the way back, trace through that. The first single man started his journey from Africa and expanded all the way. So what is not here that can be another place?
Wonderful, fantastic. Thank you so much for your knowledge, not just about business, something beyond. And thank you so much. And let me dive a little deep into the business side of this segment 3, which is about export-import business. There are a lot of business owners back in India and who are actually doing trading business, not only Africa, but also the other countries as well. Starting from Sri Lanka to everywhere they do it. You know about how Indians and the Tamilians, we all do business outside of India. Correct. So what kind of opportunities exist for a first-time business owner? Let's say, for example, a first-generation entrepreneur who wanted to do something on export-import, especially with related to food, commodities, and these areas in Africa. What kind of advice, what kind of suggestions you would like to make for them?
Since it is, as I told you, it is basically agro-based. As of today, this is a food basket. It is going to be the food basket for the world, actually. What it grows, like it is. I wouldn't say it has not happened. It is already happening. The transformation of land to rice cultivating areas in other countries. Because a lot of people have put money. Company like Olam International, they have spent a lot of money on the ground, and today close to 1 million tons of rice they grow in Nigeria, northern Nigeria. So you can transform. Those who are interested with the infrastructure, you can collaborate with the government. Lands are available. You can get a land and started agriculture business. You can farm. People in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, that there is a demand, because more than 20 lakh Indians are there available. There is a demand for okra. They call it okra. That is bindi. Somebody put a plantation there. One of the Indian who find there is a huge demand for tomatoes. So he bought around 40-45 acres of land, and he started with the government, collaborated a little bit, and they promote also. All the governments are willing to promote agricultural sectors if they can invest and if they can put their time on growing and transforming it also at the same time. That where they can make their margins. And the second thing is that Indians should basically try to, you see, what is the problem with the Indians basically? Like, say, very few, because it's in their mindset. You speak English, you are a businessman. That is where they go, and to concentration in Nigeria is more because it is English colony. Concentration in Ghana a bit more is because English colony. But the same population level will not be in other French colonies, because you have to go to a new country, learn that language, all those things are there. So they don't venture out much. So they should try with an interpreter, or to start with their force, come develop businesses across. First, initially come the person who wanted to venture the business, you should come and stay 1 or 2 years, understand the land, understand the people, understand the government, understand their knowledge. Then you can get into that. And youngsters with this mind basically of developing something. And of course, every business is a packaging industry, because all agro commodities are packed in jute bags, for example. Jute is a very beautiful business. From India, you come to West Africa, all over West Africa, every single packing has to happen in jute bags only, food grade jute bags, which is it's a beautiful thing that they can contact here. All the clients here in West Africa, they can supply jute bags. So this is all this jute bag business is good, and they can work in commodities also. Like India needs cashew nuts, They can come here and buy cashew nuts from the exporters who are already established here. New ventures wouldn't, because they have to experience themselves. I wouldn't suggest anybody come directly and start. They need to work with some people initially and learn the trade, and they can do it. And it's all, see, agro commodities at the end of the day, basically agriculture, it based on some demand and supply scenario. And you'll be able to, the patience is required. It is not like that you buy for $100, tomorrow you sell for $150. The market may crash to $20.
Correct.
It depends on your holding power, your appetite, risk-taking ability. That all matters. I'm not, sowing a seed of, fear. It is not. That is everywhere. A person who wanted to be so safe, he go to because they say there is a war everywhere, there is a famine everywhere, I can be hit by a bullet here and there. He goes to Kerala, sits under a coconut tree, and one coconut falls in his head and dies.
Correct.
So, risk is everywhere, sir. That's a part of life, and was risk-taking, willing, everything. There is an opportunity. But Africa is growing, and anybody takes part at this level can grow together. And before, but definitely one more worst of all, I can say that Africa gives you guarantee of good purified air. The percentage of oxygen that you take in India, it's 0. Here it is 0.0000. It goes. We are already in 2 digits there in India.
Okay.
And the water, we are purest form of water. The water, the nature, and the moon looks brighter and bigger here in Africa because there is no ozone layer tap there, and the mirage is very in between the cloud. There is no kind of a mirage. It's so clear. The skies are clear, and you have and Africa, you have rains, good rains, 7 to 8 months of rains, and there are places where you can see everything. Even in desert, they grow onions today, thanks to the technology from Israel. They have taught because everybody is coming and showing interest. Africa is growing. There is a good opportunity for everybody in Africa. Yeah.
I'm so happy that every time when you conclude your talk, that has really given me a clue for my next question. Actually, what are the questions? You already answered several questions, and the last part, what you said about the Israel, the technology, the agri technology.
Yeah.
Exactly, I'm going to ask you that question to you now. So back in India, we are also talking about how to automate our mechanization of agriculture. Yeah. So the biggest problem in India is still we are way behind compared to the developed countries for various reasons, especially with respect to technology. So what kind of technology Africa is using in terms of agriculture?
Agriculture, they have their own local, because the nutritious part will go basically the moment we bring the technology from outside. So Africa was named for its resources and the richness of it. Same thing, our old tradition of Kaikuttal Arisi from Tamil Nadu and everything, basically, there was no single trace of any fertilizer or pest chemicals or something like that, basically. But today, unfortunately, anytime you talk about technology, bringing in new technology, which involves genetically modified, automatically the killing has started already.
Correct.
So there is actually, the imported rice is cheaper than the local rice. The local rice, I would prefer to buy a local rice, which is very sweeter, and there is no trace, because there is a variety called buffon, which you don't find it anywhere. Reed buffon, they call it, because the rainy season, they can throw it in the water, basically.
Okay.
And it can be soaked in the water, and after the rain, the grain comes out of it. The reed buffon, which is very tastier, and that nobody can define the technology. Because in India, the same grain, if you put it inside, we call it basically, it gets rotten. But here it doesn't get rotten. It comes out as a grain.
Oh, okay.
So that is the nature gift here, basically.
Okay.
And technology, yes, people are following technology. Pesticides have come. All the companies, because now cocoa mainly need to be treated. So all the crop plantation now, before it was a wild crop, now it has become plantations. Plantation need to be maintained and treated. So a lot of agrochemicals have started coming to Africa. And that is the technology where they can increase the yield also at the same time. You can't, with the globalization, everything effect, you can't stop that one. But still, there are, if you wanted to make a good food, it's possible to make good food, because the land is good, the water is good. It is yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so they use almost the soil is good. What you meant was the soil is very good.
Yeah,
and the water is pure.
Yeah.
And everything is clean and pure. So naturally, they don't
Yeah,
really.
it is a sulfur effect. You have a lightning more in Africa that has a sulfur effect on the soil, basically. So you put basically what we say, their plantain, for example, Nendrangga plantain is like we can use our mammuti, the hand for the sambal.
Correct.
You can put one and you can dig the ground. It's like a stick, such a big, huge level.
Okay.
மண்வெட்டியோட கைப்பிடின்னு சொல்லலாம் நீங்க. ஒரு நேந்திரம் பழம். It looks that much bigger.
Oh.
And everything grows is much bigger. It's
Okay.
because of the sulfur effect in the soil. The soil is good. Africa, of course, it's rich. You have it's a wild Africa.
Okay.
And it is beautiful. I'm a bit worried because of this. There will be restrictions very soon in Africa for this agrochemical, because they are spoiling the land indirectly. It is happening already. Everywhere it is happening.
Okay, okay. That's fantastic. Right? You really covered length and breadth of this scope of segment 3. And now I move the segment, I move into the segment 4. The segment 4 is the last segment of our discussion. I mean, we can keep on discussing because I know about you. When I start talking, you will be pouring information, which we did some time ago back in India when we did the 24 hours non-stop management conclave. You were one of the speakers from Africa who you delivered beautiful talk at midnight, 12 o'clock, if you could recall.
Correct. Yes.
So between 12 a.m. and 12:30. So now I move into the segment 4. This is about the lifestyle. Of course, you covered it, but still I'd like to ask you more. What kind of Indian population right now live in Africa? And which part of the country from India people travel more? Is it Tamil Nadu, or is it South India, North India, West or East? And what kind of associations you have for Indians, and how far you're all united and contributing for the country back in India? Because most of the time what we say is when it comes to technology field, we say the brain drain. People are all going out after studies and we are losing our resources. After studying, we are spending a lot of money by the government, and people go abroad and they forget India. So what is your take on those areas?
You see, first of all, about the community as I speak, you know that very well. India, if you ask me frankly, sir, I would like to choose my circle. I would prefer to have a lesser Indians in that one, because wherever I see, because by the nature of them, because India is not, we can call it as India. It was 100 and 150 kingdoms all put together. United States of India, you can say United Kingdoms of India, you can say that one. Still the mentality differs. And if you frankly ask me, that's what I would say, that out of my 10 circles, out of 10 friends, whom do you want? I will prefer to have 8 outside and 2 Indians. And that's how I say, mainly because they won't allow you the niche, because people do business in different parts. Okay, those who really wanted to explore, make the value for the product and make a margin, create a margin. Others do some other business, but they want to take the money out. They use this commodity as a channel. So they export back to India, they get the, they don't bother about margins there. They only bother about taking their money outside. So the interests are different.
Okay.
Who really wanted to do business with a good margin is not able to do today because of the malpractices done by, frankly, our community. More, I would say that.
Indians.
And of course, definitely, they do some other business. For example, they import something else just to, to offset the bills, they export something else, which they're nowhere related to. The idea is to get the money out, which is not basically, because if you keep the money here, you're entitled to pay tax here. Which nobody want to do that. So you be a good, if you wanted to go a good businessman, good practitioner, pay taxes, stay in the country, make your margins very decently. And Africa is almost welcome to those people who wanted to deal directly. And unfortunately, the business community from the north, because it's not that I don't have anything bias about it. So basically, still today, I would say the hard work laborers is coming from south only.
Okay.
In the industry. And they're concentrated more in British colonies than in other colonies, because the ability of not picking up or learned languages or to adapt to a quick change to a French colony where they need to spend 2-3 years at least for them to adapt and get into a business. First of all, to survive itself will take for you to 1 year to understand everything. And after that, you have to learn the languages and try to get the understanding about the business. It's a big challenge for them. Those who really look at challenge can look at into other countries. But Indians, basically, the mindset is that English, and Hindi, wherever there is more of their community members are there, which, for example, in Tanzania, the Gujarati communities are more, because you can see the concentration of them. Like if it's Hindi community, basically, you can say community-wise, because where they are more, they will attract people from those industries, from those areas, actually. It depends upon one businessman who's successful, is a Sindhi businessman, he will attract 1/4 Sindhis of the population of the country.
Correct.
From Sindh, actually, from their community. That is how the group has happened here. It is not one South Indian, for example, who is able to establish a business successfully. You can see almost 200, 300 Indians coming out of Chennai or Madurai or Tuticorin. That's how it happens, because interdependency is not happening. Trust reasons, main reasons, and I am trying to break that right now, because I am a spiritual trainer at the same time. In Heartfulness, actually, I'm a preceptor, and I am totally against this biasness about North Indian, South Indian, everything. So I have insisted my company should have. I have in my zone close to 30 Indians are working, 35 Indians are working, and each one 3-4 from South India, 6-7 from Kerala, 12 from North India, and from Bihar and Bengal. I have from Jharkhand. I have from all over India. From Bangalore also. We have from Kannada and Tamilians, Malayan. We have, and not only that, our culture also. We have Chinese working in organization. We have Lebanese working in organization. We have Ivorians working in organization. Africans working in organization in a key role. For example, the country head for Ivory Coast is a Beninois. Is from Republic of Benin. Is an African. Who controls 20 Indians under him. I gave him the right to do that.
And you said it beautifully, and you nailed it, actually. I really appreciate your frank insights on those community-based, the Indian communities. I think overall, the sub-question which I asked you in the segment 4 was like, when the brain drains, when people go out, and I hope you are all sending a lot of money back in India, right?
Definitely, sir. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. That is happening now. That is really happening. And you can see the loss of income particularly. But in the past 6-7 months, people are not able to, because a lot of people have returned. You can see the losses already with the data, with the statistics available there. The remittance is very good from all the Indians suffer and send. At the end of the day, if you ask me finally where you want to rest, it depends basically on everybody. Basically, you need to always the place where I grew up, where the country who educated me, I have always indebted to them at any point of time. And I would like to bring resources from India, give them the opportunity to learn life, not to spoil. Because I see today the youngsters, I just want to tell them that, as I already mentioned in my interview with you in during, I think, 2000 something, I really don't know, in SRM University, we have interacted. I have guided those Indians basically to the youngsters, especially. You want to spoil, you can spoil anywhere, but have a foreign dream and come. What is for what? Because that is in their mind basically, to become richer quite faster, to make more money, the thriving everything. You eradicate all the logics and ethics of life. You close everything, bury them under the ground, and hook or crook to make money. Please don't come. I would kindly say that. You want to achieve something, be a niche finder, you want to improve, do something to yourself, test yourself, your endurance and your power, your ability, your surviving skills. Come here, experience yourself. If you survive in Africa for 10 years, you can survive anywhere in the world.
Okay.
That's more.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. That's fantastic, really. So this has given me another opportunity to ask you the last final question for this interview is about the languages you know. Because you have been dealing with so many people, so many countries.
Yes.
You yourself said that several countries people are working with you in your organization. So I'm sure you know several languages. Can you please share your language experience? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, see, I didn't learn anything. I didn't study any particular courses, anything basically. It's on the field. That's the better way to learn. You have to be on the street with the people to learn the languages. Actually, language is not even required. They said two people wanted to love. They don't have any language, actually. You really love to learn, you don't need to literally, basically understand, observe, and you will learn. So I started in Nigeria. They say it is English, but it is not English. It's called Pidgin English. It's a language by itself. There is no relation. And when I come to Benin, it was French. So I was struggling initially. I can say that I don't know the word for butter in Portuguese. When I went to Guinea-Bissau, it's called language called Creole. In Creole or in Portuguese, basically it's a bad form of Portuguese called Creole, and bad form of French there is a Creole also. It's like the Hindi that's spoken in Delhi, the Hindi that's spoken in Bombay.
Yeah.
Two differences there. It's not the same Hindi.
Yes.
So the Bombay spoken is called Creole. The Delhi spoken is called Hindi.
Okay.
So Creole is basically a bad form of the original language. So I was struggling to have butter. I don't know how to say butter because the French breads or the Portuguese and French bread is like you can break somebody's head with that. That's strong.
Oh.
Yeah, that's made that way. Inside is soft, but the outside shell is very hard. So normally you need a softener, which is butter. So I don't know how to tell butter in English. I tried to explain all my way. And I was hungry to the level. Then I soaked that in a bucket of water. Then I started eating it. He brought the butter that day. This is what you're looking for. I asked him, what is that? It's manteiga.
Wow.
So I will never forget that word. The experience teaches you better than the school and everything, basically. I will never forget the word manteiga in my life because that is what I wanted that morning. So that is how you search your words also. When you come to a community, you will be surprised. I started speaking French in a week's time. Exactly, it took only 1 week for me to speak French. And then over a period of the climb, slowly started learning the numbers, the numerical system. Then automatically you will somehow start speaking. And today you have, I used to write and show them figures because I don't want to make errors in the figures. So I take a small pad, write the numbers only and show. Balance I manage. And over a period of time, people speak Portuguese, Creole, Creole of that's one, Pidgin English, English, French, Portuguese, Creole, Malayalam, Tamil, Hindi.
I think Spanish also you speak, I guess.
Yes, it is all the same at the end of the day. It's all different words put to here and there. Latin is the base. One is English, which is separately because it's not part of Europe. It was a separate kingdom. Portuguese, Spanish, Latin, all comes under one basket. All the three will have almost similar words. And pronunciation, there's a difference in a little bit of pronunciation, but generally it is the same, one and the same.
So that gives a lot of confidence also when you deal with people, right?
Definitely, because at the end of the day, what in the spiritual practice that we do is to know yourself. That's what we are doing. In heartfulness practice, we say know yourself better, because the human potential cannot be measured by any methods. Basically, my master always says, know your potential, know who you are, what is inside you. And if you cannot explore that, and Africa gives a base for you to explore that. With the situation of difficulties and situation, every difficult situation that makes you to prove yourself, and you will know yourself better.
So that's fantastic, really. And I think we have come to the final last portion of our conversation. Thank you very much for your time. So I'm going to ask you one question. Would you suggest back in India, all our children, students who are studying in colleges and schools, would you recommend them to take one overseas language as a kind of a learning mechanism, which would help them in career?
It is a compulsory, sir. Unfortunately, I think the new education system will allow them to do that. I think so. I have just been going through the news quite recently. I would appreciate that if that happens, nothing like that, because it is a mandatory request. It is important for them to survive. It will increase their survival skill at the earlier level itself. One foreign language is a must, basically, because everybody thinks foreign means English. It's a wrong concept. The English-speaking countries are comparatively lower in the world than the French-speaking and the Spanish-speaking. You know that 60% of the Americans speak only Spanish. 60% population of the America, they speak Spanish only, though it's called English country. And unfortunately, if you go to Britain, you cannot speak that English and survive. You will not be able to understand a single word that they speak. The English spoken there is the ancient way of English, and they open their mouth, you will understand nothing. Where they're supposed to speak English, you will not understand anything, basically. Where you understand that they are speaking English, which is not correct. US, 60% of the population speaks Spanish, which is reality. Entire South America is Spanish and Portuguese. Brazil, Portuguese. Portugal. West Africa, almost 3/4 of the country speak other language. Very few places in the world, they speak English, which is a wrong conception. People are having that if I speak English, I can go abroad. No, sorry, sir. Survival, if you can learn one more foreign country languages. English, of course, is the base of education. And because they have colonized earlier, much earlier, that is why they have left their stamps. Because of the colonization, today we are speaking English. We are Otherwise, we wouldn't have speaking. If a French guy would have colonized us, we'll be speaking French. Like the way in Africa, everybody speaks good French because they have been colonized.
Correct.
That's the official language here.
That's fantastic. In fact, you have ended this conversation with a beautiful advice to youth of our country back in India that they should pick up, the most preferred language of their choice. End of the day, they can even choose. They can even choose Chinese. They can choose Japanese as well, whichever language they feel.
The main criteria for that, why I'm saying, is that because we already our mindset says that you have already determined to go to UK or USA. Abroad means for any youngster today, either I go to UK or USA. There is no other world in between, sir. I just asked those youngsters this question. There is no world in between that you have. The problem is, if you are able to understand some basic words out of it, for example, it can be Spanish, it can be French, or it can be Italian or anything. But if you go to that country, your initial suffering will not be there. If you are able to understand the basic concepts of the language, it's very easy to cohere that one, and you are able to speak very properly. Because today, if I speak English, you can see some words of French comes automatically. Some words of Portuguese comes automatically. So the coherent, and they're able to collaborate very nicely if they have the basic knowledge of that particular language. Otherwise, the first 1 year they will be able to spend. They have to spend the first 1 year spending only, and they will not be able to generate. The guy who goes there to generate some funds for their organization or for himself will not be able to do, because the lacking will be the language. If he is able to understand that quickly, he will be started, working for his organization or for himself, which is a great challenge in a foreign country. Understanding.
Absolutely. Wonderful, Mr. Sridhar. This is Mr. Ramanathan Sridhar from Tamil Nadu, from Trichy, all the way to West Africa, and traveled widely across the globe. And I'm very, very happy, and it's really a proud privilege for me to host you in this program. And thank you very much for joining all the way from Ivory Coast. So would you like to say any final word about our conversation, Mr. Sridhar?
Yeah. First of all, this sharing of the knowledge, basically, I just wanted to say that in Bhajagovindam, basically, they said that knowledge, the preface that President Radhakrishnan has given, if you can see that knowledge that is not shared, it's a stinking thing, basically. And if I knock my head somewhere, everything that is inside goes, it's a loss for everything. Even a small banana tree, before it dies, leaves 2-3 on the ground before it leaves. We have to share knowledge. The knowledge is given for you to share. God has given money to share, not for keep yourself, basically. These are the basic concepts which I follow, basically. Keeping yourself, nobody gains. By sharing it, the world gains. So that is one part. And apart from that, I thank you so much, because the association I had with your organization earlier, Mr. Prakash, I can say, is one of my mentor also. He guided me in many of as and when I found so much of doubts, he was able to clarify me. And Mr. Anand also, last time we had interacted with you, you guys are doing a very good job, basically. Just when you are at the dark, basically, a small piece of light, even a matchstick, it doesn't need the momentum of how big it is or how small it is. You need a light at that point, at the end, at somewhere else, which you used to do. I would say your role, basically, you're lightening things for people, basically, when they are in dark, actually. And keep continuing the services to people, actually. Really, I appreciate the great work done by you. And I'm very happy that I know you earlier for the past 10-15 years. Though we are not in regular basis, we are in touch. But anytime I comes to India, I see Mr. Prakash, and I try to see you for quite some time, but it's not happening. But we hope to see you soon also.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar. Thank you so much for your time, and it's a lovely discussion we had with you. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.